We're here with Marco Baravalle for HYPER Annotations 3.0, triple ampersand's public program. Marco, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, and thank you for having me, by the way. I am part of a collective that is called SALIDO, that is also a space, the space in which we found ourselves now, and I am part of another international collective that is called the Institute of Radical Imagination. I'm a curator, an activist, and a researcher. Of course, I have many jobs and many hats, if you want.
Yes. And could you please tell us a little more about SALIDO?
Sure. SALIDO is what we call a self-managed activist art space. It is quite old for an activist space because we occupied this space 17 years ago in 2007. And when I say we, I mean a group of Venetian art workers, and since then SALIDO has been different things. Has been a place that tries to experiment an alternative institutional model compared to the normal art spaces in Venice, which usually have strong and big private global financial capitals behind. Here there is no director, there is no owner of the space, there is an assembly that manages the space. We are trying to do our own curatorial project, and this is one thing. And the other thing, it is an activist space, meaning that it has been always a center for the self-organization of art workers in Venice, and it's also the house of many local movements, such as the Committee Against Big Cruise Ships, such as the local chapters of Ni Una Menos, the feminist collective, and so on and so forth.
Yes. And how do you feel the structure and nature of your institution sort of works amongst the more traditional structure or formats such as the Biennale? I mean, you guys are activistic, you're independent. So I was wondering, is there like a harmony? Is there a contradiction? Is there something new that comes out?
Listen, if you ask me, what we repeat all the time is that for us, the Biennale is an important thing in Venice. It's something that we value. Yes. We're not against the Biennale. We are against a certain use or certain institutional policies that the Biennale puts in place. And we are certainly against the use of precarious cultural labor, which is unfortunately the rule, not so much by the Biennale itself, but by the different companies and agencies that work in the organization of events and exhibitions that are linked to the Biennale. We do have, we founded together with other groups, we founded a thing that is called Biennalocene, like the ear of the Biennale. That is an assembly of cultural workers that meets here at SALIDO, that is fighting, for example, for the rights of local art workers. Then, of course, it's difficult. It's different compared to the Biennale in many ways. It is different from the way we work. As I told you, we work through an horizontal assembly, and the constituency is different. We don't have audience, we don't typically have visitors, even if, of course, there are people that come to see what we do, the exhibitions we host, but we like to think we do have a constituency that is made of, for example, local activist groups of subaltern subjects, and it is a space that is open. Everybody can can participate to our assembly. Everybody can become part of this space, and of course, it is a space that is very free, also in terms of freedom of speech and of expression. What we are seeing all around Europe and the US, with, for example, with the current genocide in Gaza, is that no matter how decolonial art institutions appear, when it comes to give voice to the Palestinian people, many of these art institutions all of a sudden stop to be so decolonial and censored and cancelled many artists, many events. This is not what is happening. And for example, in the next few days here, we will have the voice of Palestinian artists that are free to express their dissent towards what is going on in their country now. But these are only a few examples of possible differences. And another, I would say, structural difference is the fact that, let alone the Biennale, that is a different story. It is an historical presence that was founded in 1895, so a long, long time ago. Let alone the Biennale that has different problems. What we have been witnessing in the last 15 years in Venice, it's a sort of narrowing of the artistic biodiversity, meaning that if you consider who now can actually reclaim space for art in Venice, what art means in Venice, behind art now you see more and more private global financial capitals. You have to be a rich global billionaire in order to have your own foundation or your own small private museum in Venice. So we are really even physically, not only from the point of view of the project itself, but really physically, like preserving a space which is managed differently, which sees art, which conceives art in a different way, which basically saves a few hundred square meters from this crazy real estate speculation, which is also boosted by new art museums opening. I think it's something very precious if you think of the context of Venice.
Yes. And as for your current exhibition, Gathering into the Melstrom, how would you situate it amongst your previous exhibitions at SALIDO, but also your previous exhibitions that occurred perhaps during the Venice Biennale?
Yes, it's very different. First of all, we should say that it's co-curated. One subject is SALIDO, and the other subject is the Institute of Radical Imagination, that is an international collective.
The other institution you're a part of.
Yeah, it's not. It's a very light institution. It's really like an international collective, yes. Mostly of Euro-Mediterranean scholars, activists, artists, and that's basically it. I don't know if I can really call it an institution. Right. I could maybe call it an alter institution. Again, something alternative from the usual art model.
We're familiar with those.
Yeah, exactly. So Gathering into the Melstrom is different because it is at the same time a program of presentation, of talks. It is an exhibition and it is a direct action. So if later you're gonna have some pictures or you can shoot some of what is happening downstairs, you will see that there is a huge wooden fish that has been designed and built by a local collective named Power Notte, and there are a few puppets, a few props that have been made in the previous days by the Indonesian collective Taring Padi. And all these things will go Saturday morning to a demonstration, a water demonstration against the big cruise ships, against the presence of the big cruise ships in the lagoon of Venice. So all these objects which are forming the exhibition will go to the demonstration, and hopefully they will come back and they will become again the exhibition for the next couple of months, together with a video that documents the action. So the idea is that these objects are at the same time, really aesthetical and political at the very same time. And I think this is a big difference compared to any other exhibition that you will visit in Venice. But let me also give you another example. This project named Biennalocene. How did it start? So last year, the German pavilion of the architecture biennial asked me to give them like a curatorial proposal. So I involved both SALIDO and the Institute of Radical Imagination, and we suggested that we could go for what we called a performative investigation in the field of cultural work in Venice. So what we did was we interviewed 11 cultural workers from the let's say our antagonist, let's call him the the entrepreneur which makes good money through the organization of exhibitions at the Biennale, but at the same time also makes good money out of precarizing the workers.
Yes.
So we also, and we interviewed other people that are typically the jobs that are needed during the Biennale. Cultural mediators, art handlers, guides, up to a migrant woman who works as a janitor in a local museum. So we made these 11 interviews, and we sort of found some common problems. We sort of mapped, the most common problem.
Yes.
Out of these 11 interviews, we created a dramaturgy. So we wrote a theater piece. This dramaturgy was performed by the workers themselves in a sort of performative assembly in a public space in Venice. So in a place where you didn't need to pay the ticket for the Biennale, to the Biennale to witness the exhibition. But the peculiar thing is that basically the end of the performance was the call to a real assembly. So we said, guys, now we know what are the problems. Now we have been performing this assembly. Let's meet for real in 2 weeks at SALIDO and let's see what happens. We were waiting for 20 people. Instead there were 200, sorry, it's too much. Instead, more or less 100 people came. From that moment, we started a process called Biennale. We gathered every month for 5 months, and what we did was a process of collective writing of what we called the Metropolitan Charter of Cultural Work. That is 25 points that we are now proposing to institutions, to those institutions who want to treat fairly their workers.
Yes.
And we did sittings, and we did, and we unmasked a few institutions that are doing very illegal things in the treatment of the workers, and so on and so forth. So this is all to say the way we work. We work through. This was a militant investigation. That was an art piece that in turn generated a political process of self-organization.
And could you tell us a few of those 25, please? Of the 25
Yeah,
points,
sure. From very technical points that concern the type of contract, because there is a specific, in the Italian law, there is a specific type of contract for cultural workers, which is rarely applied, because you would need to pay the workers more than what you pay them if you use different contracts. Or the fact that in Italy it doesn't exist a minimum wage, and of course it doesn't exist a minimum wage for cultural workers either. So we said something which is absolutely not revolutionary, would be like, let's say, the starting point, and we asked for a metropolitan minimum wage of at least 10 euros per hour for cultural work, which is absolutely not a lot, but what is crazy is that during the Biennale period, you get people that are typically graduated, that speak 2 or 3 languages, that perform any type of task, also like task of mediation, of guiding, of organization, and they are maybe paid 5 euros per hour. You see, with that type of money, you cannot think of living in Venice. And that makes it even more serious, because Venice, it is a place that is bleeding its residents. We don't even call it gentrification, we call it exodus. And in such a way, the art economy, instead of helping Venice to get more new residents, it contributes to the depopulation of the city. To other more general articles, such as the right for workers to organize internal commissions in every institution about sexual harassment, for example, about cases of racism. So the idea that the institutional instruments are often not enough to avoid especially cases of sexual harassment, and that workers should have their own safe spaces in which to talk and in case denounce these cases. up to many other questions that were raised by the assemblies.
Yes. I have just one final question. How do you think gathering into the Melstrom relates to the Biennale's theme of foreigners everywhere? Excuse me, foreigners everywhere, if at all, perhaps it doesn't?
Well, I honestly don't know if it relates with the theme of foreigners everywhere. For sure, what is sure is that here SALIDO is a space where, you know, like not only foreigners are materially welcome, but also like a foreign mindset compared to the neoliberal art mindset is like is living here, is happening, you know. So I would tell you this. I don't know if it's a very smart answer, but what it comes to my mind.